All right, so today we're going to talk about the spout part 2. So I've made this in our previous video, and it is a solid piece of clay shaped like a spout. And what I'll do today is I'll cut it apart, hollow it out, and let it set up some more before we consider attachment. So this is like wet leather hard right now. It's kind of on the wetter side, but it's pretty good for what we're gonna do. So I've got this piece of fishing line. I've wrapped it around my fingers. And there are a couple ways that I could approach this. I can cut it in half, which is like one approach. The other approach would be to simply take a loop tool, so whatever type of loop tool you have, and start hollowing it out from the bottom. That option works pretty well too. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my cutting wire, and I'm just slicing straight down. So you can see I just cut that straight up in half. I'm gonna pull it out the other side. And this is a method that you can use for spouts that are kind of like funny shaped too. It works really well. So now I'll hold this in my palm and define for yourself the areas that you're keeping. You wanna leave enough of an edge that there is a spout left when you're done carving. So I usually start out by marking out for myself what I'm gonna keep and what I'm going to get rid of. The thickness of your piece for your spout is usually gonna run a little bit thinner than the thickness of your overall piece. So I've marked that one out, and this is gonna need to meet it on the opposite side. All right, and then I can think about, you know, not just the frontal angle, but like what I'm scooping out of the body of it. So that is the part inside that I'm going to be getting rid of by hollowing it out. Okay, and here it is on this one as well. All right, and then I'm gonna just hold it in my hand, supporting it really well. I don't want it to get distorted. And I'm gonna take a loop tool or whatever carving tool you've got and just start at the big end, taking out clay. And you want to try to do this and keep it as even as possible. So take your time to not do a really rough job of it. Okay, and this loop tool is about to not fit into the tip, so I'm going to go as far as I can using the same tool. And then I might transition to using a needle tool or some other cutting or carving tool, or whatever you've got on hand. So I'm just going to try like cutting that out and then peeling it back a bit. Think of yourself kind of like a dentist or a dental hygienist. I'm using the rounded end of my cutting tool here to try to get in there and maintain that flow, how it goes. Okay, so now I've got most of it cut out. I can go ahead and, supporting it really well, come in here and smooth out the marks. You don't want to leave those, because then when it pours, your liquid, your tea, is gonna have to run over all of those marks, and it will not be happy about it. It'll go, 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 go. Okay, for this tip, my finger is too large of a tool to use, so you might think about using a tool handle. I've got this paintbrush handy, so I'm just pressing that in there, supporting it against my fingers, and giving it a little twist. Okay, once again, I don't want to wet this on the inside. I accidentally got a little water on there. Okay, and you can see that my spout, there's still like kind of an awkward amount of thickness, such that when I put it back together, like the hole would not be that big, but that's okay because I'm gonna end up cutting it. So I'm gonna set this aside and do my other part. Okay, following the guidelines that I made for myself as well. Once again, doing a nice, neat job, taking my time. And if you accidentally go through the wall of your spout, you can slip and score and patch it. Or if you're really dissatisfied with it and it doesn't seem like it's gonna be smooth again, make another spout. Like I said in my other video, I often make 2 with the intention of keeping 1 so that I have a backup plan, because spouts are fiddly. All right, and coming back to that tool I was using before, I'll come in and just scoop out that tip. And you're gonna see in a moment why it doesn't matter too much if that's perfect, because that's the part that we're gonna stick a tool down and fix. So get the general smoothness flowing. You can use your fingers for that. Okay, so I've got this half and that half, and now these are ready to slip and score together. All right, so get some slip. On both sides. I've got my scoring tool. You can use anything to score. If you need to use a needle tool works. Whatever you've got for scoring, just make sure that you go over it at least several different directions, because this is a seam that you want to disappear. You don't want anyone to know that there's a seam there. All right, so I'm pretty gooey and hamburgery on both sides, and now I'm gonna go ahead and stick them gently together, lining up the sides. Okay, so I'm gonna keep my finger inside there and pressing against where my finger is at. I'm gonna use a finger to weld that together really nicely, and then smooth it over to the point where I can't tell that there was ever a seam. And try to do the same on the inside to the point where you can reach. There will be a point to which you can't reach with your finger, and we can talk about that. So then you're gonna flip to the other side, do the same thing, just weld it over to the point where it's blended. And then I'm gonna go on the inside and just smooth that together as well. All right, so you can tell on the inside, it's looking pretty good. On the outside, it's looking pretty good. The tip looks gross, and you'll see why that doesn't matter in a second. So I'm gonna take that same paintbrush that I was working with. I'm gonna get a little water on the handle. And then I'm actually gonna stick the handle inside the mouth here, and I'm gonna hold it with my hand, and I'm gonna just rub that around. And that's gonna smooth those edges together. Okay, so I've just done that. Now I'm gonna just cut the tip. So I wanna think about where would be flat if it were at the angle I expect. All right, so I've cut it, and now I can go even further with some water. So now is kind of the final step. So I'm gonna take my fingers, I can support them inside, and I'm gonna come back around with some water. And I usually stick a paintbrush handle or a tool handle onto the inside. And I think I actually might wanna use something a little bigger. I've got this laying around. And I can actually use that to support the inside while I press against the outside and get that to flow upward. It does not matter at this time that my tip is uneven because I'm gonna cut it again. So giving it a final smoothing over everywhere. And I'm gonna try to not touch it too much after I pull this out. So I'm twisting gently to pull it out. If I didn't twist it, it might just like suction to the table and not work so well. So now I'm gonna leave this kind of looking a little bit weird until I attach it to the pot, and then I'm gonna talk about the cutoff angles. All right, so that's how to hollow your spout for a teapot.